I want to start this video off by saying rest in peace to Chauncia Meekins. What happened to her was so senseless. It don't make any sense. This incident happened very close to home, and I just want to do a reaction to it because I want people to see how messed up the world is. It just don't make no sense. None at all. This violence is crazy. Let's get into the story.
Tonight, charges are now filed against a suspect, a woman accused of shooting a fast food worker to death on the job. Good evening, I'm Russell Kinsall in for Morgan Harris. Weeks after the murder, we're getting a look at the person accused of pulling the trigger. This is that person accused of the crime. Her name is Jada Bell. She's facing multiple charges, including first degree.
Look at her. She look crazy. She's 20 years old and she done lost her life. Like, over some fries.
Degree murder.
She fired several rounds from a handgun. Thank you, Jesus.
I pray, honey.
Thank you.
All day long, honey. Today.
She looked beautiful.
She did.
And she looked happy right now. I didn't know why, but now I know why she's happy. Because her crime has been solved.
Chauncia, we got you. We got you, Sia.
A few weeks ago, I covered the case of Chauncia Meekins, 32 years old, Steak and Shake employee, Spanish Lake, North Street, Lewis County, Missouri. Shot and killed at a drive-through window on the night of April 8th while she was working a late shift. When I first brought you this story, no one had been arrested. No vehicle had been publicly identified. A mother was circling a shattered drive-through window in grief, and the people responsible were still somewhere out there living inside whatever they had constructed around what they did. That has changed. If you were here for the first episode, you already know the foundation. But I want to bring everyone in together before we go into what has happened since, because the updates in this case are significant and they deserve the full picture behind them. So if you are new here, stay with me. This will not take long and it will matter. Chauncia was running 2 jobs, Steak and Shake and Family Dollar, not because she had no direction, because she had plenty of it and was working toward it the way people do when they don't have the luxury of waiting. Her mother, Tamala Washington, said she didn't bother nobody, that she'd give you whatever she had before you finished asking. Her father, Chauncia Meekins, is a man I've thought about more than once since this case first landed on my screen. The way he spoke about his daughter in those first public moments, trying to hold himself together and not quite managing it, that specific kind of grief. A father who just ran out of daughter, who does not perform itself. It just sits there on a person's face and you know exactly what it is. She had been at that Bellefontaine Road location for about 4 months. She knew the rhythm. She knew the drive-through. She had done this hundreds of times before and had every reason to believe she would do it hundreds of times after. 13 days before her 33rd birthday, she took a break from her shift and called her mother. They talked about what Tamala was going to cook, a favorite meal, a plan for April 23rd that felt as certain as any plan 2 people who love each other can make. She went back to work. She never made it home. Now here is what I need to say before we go any further, because this case did not stay quiet in the weeks between that night and the arrest. It moved through comment sections and social feeds and community conversations in the way these cases do now, and some of what it picked up along the way was not grief. It was something else. People who claimed to know that location, people who had things to say about how Chauncia carried herself at that window, whether she was pleasant, whether she had a sharp tongue, whether... And I want you to notice the instinct here. A woman who was killed at work somehow had something to answer for first. I bookmarked those comments. Not because I think YouTube comment sections are where truth lives, but because that pattern, the reach backward into a victim's character, the moment something goes wrong, is one of the most consistent things I've seen covering cases like this. And in Chauncia's case specifically, it connects to something inside the actual evidence record that we need to talk about honestly. We will get there. What I can tell you right now is that an arrest has been made. Charges have been filed. And a family that was circling a shattered window in public grief has had at least one question answered. though not the one that cost the most to carry. The mother still had.
That's sad. This mother had to see where her daughter took her last breath over fries.
Has hers. The father has found something that looks like peace, but probably isn't the whole of it. And a 20-year-old woman is sitting in a county jail on a $1 million cash-only bond, while a community decides what it believes justice looks like in a case built entirely around a food order. The full picture of how this got here is where we are going next. Welcome to Dark Truth Files. We covered this case when the answers were still missing. Now the arrest has been made, and what came with it is something you need to hear. If you're new here, subscribe and hit that like button, and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. We read every single one. There is a camera at the end of the drive-through lane on Bellefontaine Road, positioned deliberately, angled to capture every vehicle that rolls through that line. On most nights, what it records is unremarkable. Headlights, transactions, the slow crawl of late-night hunger. On the night of April 8th, it recorded something that investigators would spend nearly 2 weeks working to connect to a name. That name was Jada Bell. She pulled up in a white SUV sometime before 11:35. The order had come out. What had not come out, according to her, was a second portion of onion rings. That was the complaint. That was the opening. Words were exchanged at the window, the tone shifted, and then, in the sequence, the camera caught in full. Belle threw her drink cup at Chauncia. Chauncia threw it back. I want to stop there for a second, because that moment, a woman at a drive-through window throwing a drink back at someone who just threw one at her, is the moment some people decided tells them something disqualifying about who she was. We will address that directly before this episode is over. For now, what matters is what happened in the seconds after that drink left her hand. Belle pulled out a handgun and fired through the window. Multiple shots into an enclosed space where 2 people were working. Chauncia was struck. Her male co-worker, who had been standing at or near that window during the entire exchange, was hit in the hand. He went down. She went down. The white SUV pulled out of that lot and disappeared into the night. Officers arrived and found both employees inside the restaurant. The drive-through window, that fixed point of contact between the inside of that building and the world outside, was shattered. Chauncia was pronounced dead at the scene. Her co-worker was transported for treatment, his injuries serious but survivable. What he had just witnessed, what he was standing beside when it happened, is something no hospital discharge resolves. The vehicle was already gone, but it had not gone unseen. The drive-through camera had the full sequence: the drink, the shots, the SUV in the lane. Investigators from the North County Precinct began building outward from that footage immediately. The surrounding corridor, the commercial lots, the intersection points, the dense camera infrastructure along a major interstate interchange created a broader digital perimeter. If that white SUV passed through any frame after leaving that lot, there was footage of it somewhere. There was. Cell phone location data placed the suspect at that location at the time of the shooting. That is not a rough approximation. When location tracking data is pulled correctly, it puts a device, and by extension, its owner, within a recoverable geographic range at a recoverable time. The phone was in that corridor. At that hour, matching the window of the shooting with enough precision that investigators could begin constructing the legal architecture around it. Then came the DNA, collected from the physical evidence left at that window during the confrontation, and connected through laboratory analysis. 3 independent threads: footage, location data, biological material. Each one alone draws a picture. Together they build a case you cannot argue yourself out of. The surviving co-worker gave investigators something none of the technology could fully replace: a first-hand account. What he saw, what he heard, what he could describe about the vehicle, the people inside it, the exchange at the window before everything turned. He was standing next to Chauncia when the shots came through. He watched what happened to her. His account, given to detectives in the hours after he was treated, became part of what made the next step inevitable. St. Louis County Prosecutor Melissa Price Smith confirmed what that record had built. 6 felony charges: first-degree murder, first-degree assault, unlawful use of a weapon, 3 counts of armed criminal action. The announcement came just under 2 weeks after the shooting. The suspect was already in custody. Bond was set at $1 million, cash only. No attorney had appeared in the court record at the time charges were filed. Detectives called the investigation meticulous. Long hours, every tracking tool available, a deliberate construction of evidence that moved from that camera at the end of the lane outward, through digital data, physical evidence, and human testimony, until the trail ran out of road. It ran out at one address, one name, one 20-year-old woman who drove away from that restaurant and went somewhere she believed was far enough. It wasn't. Jada Bell was born in 2005. She lived in Northwoods, an unincorporated pocket of St. Louis County, Willowwood Drive. And according to every investigative record that emerged from this case, she had no prior history with the woman at that window, no prior incidents at that location, no known connection to anyone inside that restaurant. She pulled into that drive-thru as a complete stranger. She left having made a decision that will define every remaining year of her life. The first question most people ask when a case like this surfaces is the obvious one: what kind of person does this? And I think that question, while understandable, actually lets us off the hook too easily. The more honest question is, what kind of moment does this? What has to be true inside a person, in real time, for a missing food item to cross a wire that ends someone's life? Behavioral researchers who study reactive aggression, explosive, disproportionate violence that ignites in low-stakes situations, have documented a consistent pattern. It is never the onion rings. What that surface trigger represents is a threshold, a line inside the mind of the person who crosses it between feeling disrespected and deciding the disrespect requires a response the other person cannot walk away from. Researchers who study this pattern call it honor-based, reactive violence, the internal calculus that a public slight, however minor, constitutes a threat to identity serious enough to justify lethal force. The trigger is always something small. The fury underneath it is almost never about what's on the surface. And the research consistently shows this pattern clusters in individuals who carry existing tensions around conflict, impulsivity, and the belief that backing down is a form of erasure. Whether that portrait fits Jada Bell is something a courtroom will examine in depth. What the record already shows is that her decision happened fast. And that brings us to something in the charge sheet that deserves more than a headline. First-degree murder in Missouri requires premeditation. That word sounds like it demands a timeline, a plan constructed in advance, a motive assembled with intention. But legally, premeditation does not require hours. It does not even require minutes. Missouri case law has established that premeditation can exist within seconds. A deliberate choice, however compressed in time, to take a life. What prosecutors are building is not the argument that she woke up that morning planning this. It is that somewhere in the interval between that confrontation escalating and that weapon coming out, she made a conscious decision. That interval, however brief, is where first-degree murder legally lives, and it carries the most serious sentencing exposure in the Missouri Criminal Code. The 3 counts of armed criminal action sitting alongside that charge are worth understanding separately. In Missouri, armed criminal action attaches as an independent felony whenever another felony is committed using a deadly weapon. Each count carries its own sentencing range. Prosecutors filing 3 of them means the cumulative legal exposure, if convicted, extends well beyond any single sentence. This was not a charge sheet built for a quick resolution. It was built to hold. The detectives who constructed it worked under conditions that make building a clean case harder, a shooting this visible, captured on a drive-through camera, covered by every local outlet within hours, does not allow for quiet, methodical work. The family was public. The community was watching. Investigators had to build something airtight under a spotlight. What they produced rested on 3 independent evidentiary pillars, each capable of standing on its own. All 3 together forming something. A defense attorney will need to find a seam in before they can pull any single thread loose. I have a younger relative who once got into a dispute at a fast food window. Wrong order. Raised voices. He drove away furious and called me about...
Yeah, this lady obviously has some kind of mental issues. It's sad. It's really sad. To lose your life just that quick over some onion rings. Onion rings. Like, I don't understand what go through people's head. Like, you just think to just pull out and just, like, come on. Like, it's not that serious. Now you 20 years old, you gone. Your life is over. And then you took somebody else's life over some onion rings. I mean, I don't know if she had mental issues or she was on drugs. Something was wrong with her. Something. It's just the violence is just it's senseless. And you know, when we do it to our own people, like, it's just messed up. I'm sick of it. I mean, I live here in St. Louis. I'm sick of it. The crime is it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy everywhere, but it's horrible. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Please like, comment, subscribe. If I seem a little off on this video, it's because it's my first video. I'm trying to get into this content creator thing, and things to get better over time. Please, I just gotta warm up to it. Please forgive me. If you got any advice, feel free to comment. But thank you for watching the video. Appreciate it.